How do you fix a pelvic rotation? What if your pelvis is constantly wanting to twist off to one side or the other? Is there any way to fix a pelvic rotation? How do you do exercises to fix this pelvic rotation? In this video, I'm going to explain why you end up with pelvic rotations, and I'm going to show you some specific stretches and exercises that will help you reduce the pelvic rotation and uncover the muscular imbalances that are keeping you locked into that rotation. If you watch through to the end of the video, you'll have some great basic fundamental tools to help you fix your pelvic rotation. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel it. Now, before I jump right into the anatomy involved in a pelvic rotation, I'd like to ask you a question. When did you notice that you had a pelvic rotation? Did somebody tell you? Did you just notice in the mirror that you're all twisted? What brought it to your attention, and why are you looking to fix it now? Drop me a comment down below. Okay, so now let's talk about pelvic rotations and what causes these pelvic rotations to happen. This is my friend Bonnie McBonerson, and Bonnie McBonerson is a great illustration for us to understand why our pelvises or pelvis get locked into rotated positions. The thing you have to remember when you're thinking about anything related to your posture, whether it's hunchback posture, anterior pelvic tilt, or pelvic rotation, whatever it is, you have to remember that bones don't position themselves. I want you to realize that every skeleton, just like my friend Bonnie McBonerson, is subject to forces that are acting upon it. The bones themselves don't actually have the ability to create force and change position without some force acting on them. So Bonnie McBonerson here has extra little pieces that keep him together, but in your body, in my body, the things that keep the integrity of the skeleton and that position the skeleton, that position the bones, those things are called muscles. Which brings me back to a fundamental idea, which is to ATM, always think muscles. It's very easy to fall victim to the lies and myths that doctors like to spread. Doctors of all kinds, not just medical doctors, will spread about how, yeah, your bones need to do this, that, and the other thing, but really it comes down to whether your muscles are positioning your bones in the right place. Anyone who tells you that you need them to fix your bone position and the only way to do it is through them is either trying to sell you on a lifetime supply of never-ending sessions or a ghastly, unnecessary surgery with no scientific backing. So if you have a rotated pelvis, you need to think about all the muscles around the pelvis that affect the pelvis. That means muscles that connect to the spine, muscles that connect on the front of the spine, on the back, and on the side of the spine, muscles that connect to the back of the hip joint, meaning they connect the pelvis to the femur, that connect from the front of the pelvis to the femur, along the inside to the femur. There are a lot of muscles involved here, and we want to try to figure out which ones on you are causing the biggest problem. In this video, I'm going to focus on 3 key stretches that are going to help you focus on some of the key muscle groups that are going to help you improve your pelvic rotation. This is not going to be exhaustive because there are muscles literally on every side of this hip joint and all over the place that wrap in funky ways. So I'm trying to give you the 3 exercises that'll help you attack and target all of these, or at least a lot of them, so that you can get the most bang for your buck out of the least amount of time on your phone. Let's say goodbye to Bonnie for now. See you, Bonnie. He's a bit of an introvert. So the first thing we're going to do is try to free up the pelvis from the spine. And I don't mean we're going to cut in there and separate muscles. I mean we're going to just try to get a little bit of differentiation, right? We want the pelvis to move a little bit more freely from the spine. So if you have muscles, your abdominals, that are basically binding you into this like position, then you're not going to be able to free any motion of your pelvis. So if your pelvis is stuck in rotation and your abs, your QLs, all those are just locking you into that position, how are you going to solve the problem? So let's start off with our feet wide. You can bend your knees a little bit, and then you're going to just side bend, okay? You're going to go to one side and feel that stretch on the side. And then you come back up, and then you go off to the other side. So we're just checking to see like, anything really stiff, anything really sore? Does it feel like something doesn't want to move? And we're just going side to side. Now, if you want to get more stretch, you take the side, the arm that's on the side that's opening, and you reach. And you just want to keep focusing on freeing up the rib cage, right? The rib cage is separating from the pelvis, like you're just trying to get in there and get some of that meat, right? You're just stretching that stuff up. Feel that stretch. When you first start, you may feel like you're restricted, and with each subsequent repetition, you might feel like, oh, I think I'm getting a little bit farther, which is perfect, because that means the muscles that bind you down into your pelvis, those are being freed up, and your spine's going to get a little more motion side to side. Key thing to do here is not push through anything that hurts. Don't be like, oh, I see Matt doing this, so I'm going to go super hard and super fast. Remember, please remember that slow is safe and fast is foolish. So just pay attention to your body. Go slow. Gradually find the positions that feel like, oh yeah, that is good for me. That is good. So do these side bends 5 times to each direction at a minimum. If you want to do more, feel free. Just don't get like super crazy crampy or super crazy fatigued doing these. You're just trying to open these things up. And now we're warmed up and we're going to go into some of the direct hip stretches that are going to help us free the pelvis. And before I jump into these stretches, I want to be really clear with something here. If you are somebody who is already very flexible, you do a whole bunch of yoga and you've done gymnastics and whatever, and your body is just very limber already, stretching is probably not the direction you want to go to fix your pelvic rotation. If you are super mobile already, more stretching is not going to solve your problem. I will make a follow-up video in the future that goes through strength exercises that you should focus on to restore symmetry and balance for your pelvic rotation. But if you are somebody who's stiff and tight and you know it, you definitely know it, then these stretches are going to be helpful for you. And if you do fall into that super flexible category and you do want to see that follow-up video, make sure you comment down below so I can see how many people out there really want that information. It helps me understand you. First thing we're going to do is work on these muscles here on the thigh, our hip flexors and our quads. We want those to open up a little bit, and we want to figure out where there's an asymmetry from side to side and then focus on that asymmetry. One quick second, I want to say a huge thank you to the following people for the $50 donations to support my channel. Marilyn, Petrie, Mary, Susan, and Darcy. You guys are all superstars. Thanks so much for your support of my channel. To support this channel, use the join or thanks button down below or the PayPal link you'll find in the description box. Now let's get back to your pelvic rotation. I'm going to assume you're pretty stiff, so let's go at this nice and gentle. Go ahead and get some cushions, maybe a couple of cushions like I've stacked here. We're going to do the left leg first. What you're going to do is place your knee close to the wall. If you can get it right up, fantastic. If this position right here is already a stretch, congratulations, you're really, really stiff. You want to stay here and squeeze your left butt cheek and really think about bringing your pelvis towards the floor, okay? So your right leg, if you'd like, you can stick it on the floor like this. Grab onto a chair or a foam roller or something, and when you feel ready, you start coming up even higher. Now, if you're looking at this and thinking there's no possible way I can do that, then you just don't do it, right? You stay lower, you can keep that right leg down, that's fine, and you're just going to keep getting that stretch across the front of that left hip. As you get better at this, you can keep trying to lift yourself up. Keep the glute squeeze, your abs on, because what we don't want to do is have you get into a big arch in your low back. We want to keep that low back flat. You're going to keep lifting yourself up and up and up and up and up and up until hopefully you can get your heel to touch your booty. So that left booty cheek should be kissing your heel. And then you're going to feel massive stretch going on the quad of this side, okay? So don't rush to get back there. You can stay right down in this position. That's totally fine. This is a very decent starting position. Just keep working to get yourself up and up and up until you are booty to the heel. And then, of course, we're going to switch over to the right side. You're going to put your leg on there and do that. Now, here's the thing. When you do the right side, I want you to pay attention. Does this feel the same as the left side? Or do you feel like this side is stiffer and tighter? If so, guess what? You found your asymmetry and you need to work on that asymmetry. So if you find that one side or the other is much stiffer and tighter and just does not want to do this, then you want to do extra rounds of this stretch for that side. So let's say your right side is stiffer, okay? Then what I would suggest is you go start with the right side, then do the left side, go back to the right side. So the right side gets 2 sets, left side gets 1 set. Or if you want to do extra credit, you go right, left, and then do a third one for the right side. Okay, that's how you're going to work this. You want to hold these stretches for at least a minute. If you feel like that's impossible, then you've probably pushed too far into the stretch. So go into less demanding of a position and hang out there. Let your body figure out what the heck is going on in this position so that it's just a medium level of challenge, and then you can go up higher. A couple of things to do with this exercise in addition to think about in the future is use less cushioning. I used a bunch of cushioning because I know that there are people out there who are really, really stiff, and getting into this position is really hard without a lot of cushion. The extra cushion helps if you are very stiff. If you have your, for example, left leg on here, it's elevating me quite a bit, so I don't have to have as much flexibility in my right leg to get into position and stabilize, okay? If I didn't have this extra cushioning and I just use this, sometimes what you'll find is that you don't have the flexibility in the stance leg to even come forward, and you'll just be like, I can't get this forward, right? So use a bunch of cushions, use some yoga blocks under a cushion, something to elevate so it's not quite so hard, and you can just bring that foot forward and come up, okay? So again, make sure you hold for at least a minute. Go for 2 minutes if you want, and just really give yourself time to relax. Get those muscles to adapt, to understand the lengthening command that you're giving. What's up, Boney? How you doing, Boney? Okay, now we're gonna focus on the glutes and the deep hip rotators. This network of muscles can really bind you up, especially because the smaller deep hip rotators can get locked into positions and you never ever figure out how to unlock them, so your pelvis just gets stuck in that same position all day. And if it's asymmetrical, which it basically always is on people, you end up with a pelvic rotation. So what we're gonna do is just slide up near a wall, okay? I have my feet on the wall, but you may not even be able to put your feet on the wall to do this stretch. If that's the case, that's fine. You can just put your feet down on the floor. So the goal here is to be able to get a nice stretch deep into the glute, okay? So what you can do is cross one ankle over the other thigh, and then we're just going to do a little bit of a push towards the wall, okay? We're just trying to teach the knee to be able to go down that way. So we're actually getting hip external rotation. You're gonna push it. You might feel a little bit of stretch somewhere in the inner thigh. You might feel some stretch or something on the outer hip. It's okay. Just don't push through anything that hurts. So if it's just intense stretching, great. If it feels like I'm pinching and jamming something and oh man, I'm pretty sure I'm wrecking something, then stop doing that. Back off the intensity. Remember that slow is safe and fast is foolish. Keep working on gently tractioning and pushing and moving it towards the wall. The knees going towards the wall. And if that feels good, if it feels like, I can maybe do this a little more, you can play with the ankle position. So I can move it lower, I can move it higher, just play around, hold it in that spot, and then work on moving the knee towards the wall. Again, to make this easier, you can slide away from the wall and just have your foot on the ground. Or if even this is impossible to get the position for, you can grab a strap to move your ankle on and just hook around and pull it on. Or you could just start off with your legs like this, try to bring your foot up like that. Or if that still doesn't work, lie on your side, put your foot on the floor and then inch it into position and then trick it, do a little jujitsu to trap it into that position. And if this is already a stretch, fine, just enjoy the stretch there and work on it like that. That's totally fine. If you want to make it more intense, then push yourself closer into the wall so you're getting more hip flexion, you're getting deeper into hip flexion, and then work on doing that stretch. That's all good. And remember, you should be doing this on both sides. So we're going to go and do your other leg. Pay attention. What do you feel? Is it stiffer on one side than the other? If so, what do? You do an extra set for that stiffer side. So if your left side is stiffer, then maybe you should do left, right, or like we talked about before, left, right, left, so that you're doing 3 for that stiffer side. Just like the other stretch, I would suggest you work on this for a minimum of 1 minute. You can do more if your body feels like it can tolerate it, and if you continue to do it at the right level of intensity. If you do it too hard and it feels like, oh my God, then you're doing it wrong. Make sure to back out. Find the position where it feels like a reasonable, doable challenge. It's some sort of stimulus that's going to help you adapt, but is not going to hurt you. Now, for some people, doing this motion with the external rotation is not going to be that challenging, and to you, I say congratulations, you are very lucky, because many people will find it challenging. But I'm going to give you another option for this exercise, because it's very important to also go into internal rotation. For people who are orthopedic medicine nerds for some reason, or for people who have been tested by an orthopedic surgeon for alleged bone deformity, you may recognize what I'm about to do here. So there is an orthopedic test which has no scientific validity, by the way, and I will link to an article probably down below, but if you just Google upright health FADIR test, you will probably find the article. But there's a test called FADIR, which is total bunk, absolute garbage, but it's used to convince people to get surgeries. And in this test, you basically take somebody into flexion, which is bringing the knee close, and then adduction, and then internal rotation. And supposedly, if this hurts, surgeons say you need surgery, and they're totally full of it because there's no science to back that up. But in this case, we're doing a stretch that's going to bring you into flexion, adduction, and some slight internal rotation. Okay, so we can call it the FADIR stretch if we want to, but I prefer to only mention FADIR if we're going to mention that it's total BS. Okay, so what you're doing is you're crossing your ankle onto the left thigh. You're going to take your hands onto the knee and you're going to pull towards the opposite shoulder. Okay, so all the setup stuff is basically the same. You can have your foot lower on the wall, you can be further from the wall, whatever it takes to get you into position. And the goal is to just continuously challenge different angles and positions to get adduction and a little bit of that internal rotation. You're going to find it stretches things out a lot on the outer hip, and that's fantastic. Okay, you'll notice I'm also even twisting. That can be necessary, that can feel great. It's also going to help your pelvis figure out how to rotate relative to the rib cage, so that you are freeing up your spine and your pelvis from one another. You're able to undo some of the rotation that you have stuck in there all the time. So feel around, keep working on deeper in, less flexion, more flexion. Figure out what is stiff around here and then gradually let it work itself out. In this position, I want to introduce an idea of contractions as well, because especially for these muscles, it's real helpful. And you can use this technique for any of the stretches I'm showing you in this video. Basically, what you do is you go into a position where it's stretched and you feel like, ooh, it's stiff. You can hang out there for a bit. And then when you feel like, you know what, I want to try something a little different, a little spicier, then you're going to contract the muscles that are being stretched. So if it's my left glutes, actually, let me show you my right glute, so the camera's right there, you can't see over there. So if I'm pulling over here and I'm getting a stretch on this area, I can think about firing these muscles, and they're gonna, if I fire them, they create this. They create abduction, external rotation. We fire those muscles, I'm pushing out, pushing out, pushing out into my hands that are resisting, and then I relax, and then I let my hands win. I have my hands push or pull even more, and then I fire those muscles, and then I relax and see if I can go a little bit deeper into the stretch. What we're doing is training strength at a lengthened position. We want strength at every length. When muscles are too weak at a certain length, they can often feel stiff, tenuous, scared, whatever you want to call it. They don't want to go. And so when you fire those muscles in the position that they're not used to, suddenly they get used to that position and suddenly it no longer feels so scary. So when you're using these contractions, when you're stretching, you can do them for 5 to even 30 seconds long on those contractions. Trying to teach those muscles to fire there builds their strength, builds your comfort so that you're able to own that position. Okay, so both sides, of course, do. And again, if you have one side that's stiffer than the other side, or it feels like, ooh, I can't contract that side much, then you want to work on that weaker and or stiffer side for an extra set. So again, if you're doing 1 or 2 sets, just make sure you do +1 for that weaker, stiffer side. Okay, hang on, I got to do this left side because now I'm a little bit lopsided after that demonstration. And if I let myself remain lopsided, I will end up with a pretty strong pelvic rotation. Now, depending on how you're counting, I've already given you 3 stretches, but I have another 3rd stretch to show you, which is going to be for your hamstrings. Okay, so what you're going to do is get down on the floor. You can do this against the wall. You definitely want to have some sort of padding or cushion under your knee, and then you want to stick your foot up against the wall in front of you. I'm using a plyo box just because it's convenient and I like being able to grab onto something here. If you are doing this at home, you can do this near your kitchen counter. Just stick a pad under your knee, just like so. Stick your foot there, and then if you need padding under your heel, stick something soft, a towel or something underneath. For me, it's just super convenient to just grab this one exercise mat and throw it up against. Then I've got padding under both. Okay, so nothing special about this pad setup. Use whatever you have. Now, if you go and you do this and you feel like, holy cow, this is way too stiff and tight, then you want to make sure you have the stance leg elevated relative to the stretching leg. So you just add extra cushion. So now you're higher, which means you have less demand on the hamstrings because you're in less hip flexion, and then you can work on this stretch. Okay, so if you feel like, oh, I just can't get into position, it's too much, this is too insane, then raise the stance knee up, put it up on cushions so it's not so darn intense. Okay, then this foot you want to have blocked up against the wall or whatever, right? So that's going to help target that stretch through the hamstrings. It's going to lock up your range of motion. You're going to feel like, what? This is impossible. Okay, so here, we're just going to breathe. Okay, now, when you first start, you may find that it's so stiff and tight that you're kind of twisted, like your pelvis is rotating. It's as if the muscles somehow could force your pelvis into rotation. If this is the case, it's fine. Be in that position. You want to work on finding any angle here, any angle of pelvic rotation that feels difficult. Okay, so if you feel like I have to be here because it's so hard to even face the wall properly, fine, work at it. Gradually work towards doing the full twist into that hard position, but just do it gradually because slow is safe and fast is foolish. So we're gonna just work on this gradually. You want to try to bring your body in towards your foot. Take your time. Make sure it feels like a doable medium challenge that's not pinching, jamming, or hurting anything. And just get on in there. Okay? Here we can also use the contractions that I mentioned earlier. We can think about driving the foot down into the ground, into the floor, feeling the hamstrings firing, feeling a little of the glutes firing, feeling that happen. You can even think about creating a little bit of a bend at the knee to really dig into the floor. 5 to 30 second contractions. Start with 5 and then work your way to longer, then relax. The intensity of these contractions should feel manageable. Don't try to do your hardest possible contraction, and just fire it, and then when you relax it, then you can see if you can go a little bit deeper. Don't try to rush this by just bending your upper back. We want the motion to happen from femur relative to pelvis, so the pelvis is helping us go forward, and we're not just bending the spine to cheat and think that we're getting closer just because whatever, we're using all of our effort to do this. We're just make sure it's the pelvis that's moving, that this angle is actually closing. The belly button is being pulled forward and down towards the floor. It's not your chest, your sternum getting pulled down towards the floor, okay? Again, do both sides. Do them for at least 1 minute, and for the weaker, stiffer side, make sure you do extra. And again, if you feel like you're stuck, like you have to be out in this position or you have to be in whatever position, work on creating options. You want volition at every position. If this feels hard, work on it. If any position feels hard, work on making that position feel easier and more natural and smooth. And it will help you with your pelvic position in the long term so that you get rid of your pelvic rotation. With all these pelvic rotation exercises that I've just shown you, you're going to be addressing a bunch of these big muscles that will affect your pelvic position. So make sure you do them slowly and carefully and do them consistently. You're not going to fix a pelvic rotation overnight for the long term. And in fact, if all you do is work until you feel like, oh, it's just neutral now, I'm good, I'm never going to do any more exercise, you will quickly find that your pelvic rotation comes back. The way we hold our bodies is a result of repeated position practice. Our daily lives are always asymmetrical. Your car is asymmetrical. Your mouse and keyboard are asymmetrical. Any sport you participate in is going to be asymmetrical, with the exception of maybe swimming and rock climbing if you're really, really careful about it. But the majority of activities are going to be asymmetrical because ultimately you function asymmetrically because you either use your right hand for everything or you're left-handed like Boney McBonerson. The point is, if you have pelvic rotation right now, it's the result of habits. It's the result of your lifestyle. So it's very likely that it's going to want to fight to keep coming back. So you will need to establish new habits and make sure you're constantly aware of what's going on with your body so that you can keep it under control. When you first start with these pelvic rotation stretches, I would suggest just doing them 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, and get used to the form, get used to the feeling before you bump things up. It may be necessary, based on your lifestyle and based on your activities, to do these stretches every single day, or to pick 1 or 2 stretches and do those every single day. You will need to play around with the volume and the intensity of your stretches, but in general, I would say do not try to intensely stretch every single day because your muscles will hate you for it, and then you will hate yourself. Use some days as light practice for these different positions, and use other days to really push to get a little bit of extra range of motion out of each of those stretches. Just remember that you're not shooting for 50% improvement every single day. You're looking for little bits of improvement day by day, week by week. Some days you might feel like, I didn't really get what I wanted, but other days you're going to get a little bit more. And in the long term, you're going to start to see the results if you keep working at these stretches for your pelvic rotation. If you want to see strength exercises for pelvic rotation, then be sure to drop a comment down below. If you want to get stronger, more flexible hips, and you want to work on the muscles all around your hip joints, be sure to check out the Healthy Hips program on my website at uprighthealth.com. I'm going to drop the link right here. To support this channel, use the join or thanks button down below or the PayPal link in the description box. And these free videos here on YouTube can really help you with your pelvis. Like, share, and subscribe with the bell notification on. And as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks. Life shouldn't.